Today I'm going to be making this watch, which is my dream dress watch. I think it looks really gorgeous, and I'm going to go through all the steps that I needed to assemble it. And guess what? This watch actually cost me less than $100 to build. So let's get crafting. Here are the main components that we will be using for this build, starting with a classic oyster style watch case, an NH35 Seiko movement with black date dial, and the actual dial of the watch, and of course a set of hands. Well, actually no, two sets of hands, since I'll be cannibalizing the second hands from one of these sets to add into the other. This watch case is gorgeous in stainless steel, and it comes in at a smaller 36mm diameter, which is actually perfect for my wrists because I don't have big manly wrists, I suppose. I want to start by removing the bracelet to make sure accessing the case is easier. Once this is done, it can be carefully put aside for later. Removing the back is easy enough using a small rubber ball. I can now remove the crown, which also gets safely stored away for later. The last thing I'll do here is remove the back gasket and lubricate it. This will ensure the case is watertight and also helps with the seal's longevity. I wanted a nice looking watch, and while I could have made a fake Seiko or even a fake Rolex, I just really don't like the idea of parading a fake watch on my wrist, and instead I much prefer using a sterile dial that I find absolutely gorgeous, by the way, and be proud in the knowledge that I assembled this watch myself. So let's put the dial to one side for just a sec while we prepare the movement. I've gone ahead and printed myself a few small tools on my 3D printer, one of them being a small movement holder that will help secure the movement while I work on it. So in goes the movement, and yes, I'm happy knowing that this movement will not move while I'm handling it and will not be damaged by any carelessness on my side, as long as I'm not careless. I really love the subtle details on this dial. I just can't get enough of it. One cool thing about most dials you'll find is that they have two pairs of positioning pins on the back, so you can fit the dial on different movements depending on where the crown is positioned in the case. In my case, the crown is at the 3 o'clock position, and I need to figure out which of the two pins I need and which I need to remove. Now I know where the two tiny pinholes are on the movement for the pins, so I'll just check this with the dial on the movement, and then I can cut off the ones I don't need. I do need to file off any leftover pin from the dial, obviously being very careful not to damage the dial in the process. Did I tell you how much I love this dial, by the way? No? Well, I really do. Okay, let's put the dial into position. There we go, those feet are actually quite snug, but they do fit perfectly and the dial lines up great. Throughout the build you'll see me use this little air puffing thing, and while assembling your watch you really need to avoid any small dust particles getting stuck in the watch, since even the smallest speck of dust can have actually quite big consequences on your movement in the long run. Before we can put the hands on, I do need to set the time exactly at midnight, which is when the date wheel changes. So let's wind the watch gently, wind it, wind some more, and yeah, nearly there. There, the date has clicked into place. We're at midnight, or at least close enough. Okay, let's grab the hands now. I'll start with the hour hand, so I want to safely place the minutes and second hands to a side for later. This is the easiest hand to place on the watch, and I know I set the movement at midnight, so I want to align my hand as best as possible on the midnight position. Here is another 3D printed tool that I made myself, and while it's not really necessary to get the job done, I find it really does help line things up when it comes to pressing the hands into position. The minute hand can also go on at midnight, or again close enough, and I can press this down into position also. I need to check my hands are flat, and it's looking okay, although I am worried that the minute hand is a bit low and may rub on the hour hand. But first let's check a few things. Setting the time at 6 o'clock, I can see my hands don't line up perfectly, but they're close enough, so I'm going to just say I'm satisfied with the positioning. I can now test how close I am to midnight, and so I'll wind the watch through the day and slow down as I approach midnight. Yep, the date jumps just as we hit 1 or 2 minutes past midnight. That's actually really nice, and I'm not sure I could do better than that. So let's see what we can do about that minutes hand. I do need to be careful because while I do want to bend it up very slightly, there is a real risk that I could damage it. Okay, I think this will do. Now I want to wind the watch through the day again, check the hands aren't rubbing on anything, and also enjoy seeing that date jump once more just at midnight. All close enough. It's time to add the seconds hand. Now, I did mention I was going to cannibalize a different set for this one and really feel that this watch needs a splash of colour, and I personally love having a touch of red in my watches. If you've never assembled a watch, the thing you really need to understand is just how small things can get. I don't know if I really understood this properly myself until I started this section of the build. The seconds hands slot tightly into a tiny pin in the center of the movement. Now imagine having a hollow hair and sliding another hair into that hollow hair, and you'll have something close to what this process feels like. You really need to balance the seconds hand perfectly onto that pin before pressing it into its final position. Okay, finally we're done with this, and I can now see if the watch works as intended. Let's wind it up a touch, and there you go, it's alive. I am so happy right now. I swear I could spend 10 minutes just watching the seconds hand go round and round, but yeah, we don't have time for that, so yeah, let's get this thing into the case. I first need to remove the crown stem. I can then delicately place the movement onto this silicone cushion, place the case on top, and turn over. I do need to push the movement in place using tweezers while being careful not to damage anything inside. Watch movements always come with longer crown stems than needed, and it's up to you to cut the stem to length. For this, we'll screw on the crown and engage the stem into the watch. Lining up the movement perfectly can be finicky, so I may need to take my time, and this also helps me get the movement perfectly into position. Now don't say it, I know the electronics on my calipers are bust and I should look into replacing them, but at the same time people have been using calipers forever without this just fine. All I really need to do is reference the distance between the case and the crown, as this is what I need to remove. Once I've marked the cut, I can remove the crown and cut the stem. I just need to clean up the cut quickly using a file, and I can screw the crown back on. Before adding a drop of Loctite, I do want to check that everything fits well and that I've cut the stem correctly. Okay, this all looks good to me. I really only need the tiniest amount of Loctite on this before screwing the crown back into the stem. This Loctite will ensure the crown doesn't loosen and fall off with time. At this point we're ready for the final assembly, and I really don't want to have to open this watch up anytime soon, so I'm going to give it a really good clean to make sure the glass is perfect and that there is no dust in the case. I'm using Rodico putty to pick up any debris or smudges on the surface. I'll also use this to gently clean the hands. I'm not sure if you can tell, but there are in fact some small marks on the hands that I'm only just able to pick up using the Rodico. Now imagine using Play-Doh to pick up crumbs. Well, this is more or less the same thing, but at a much smaller scale. For example, if you look closely at the date window, you'll see that there are some very small specks of dust around that window, and these can be easily removed using the Rodico. And there you go, a gorgeous looking dial. Here comes the final assembly. The movement goes in and gets pressed down. Now the crown stem can be placed back in and the crown tightened down. A last few puffs to the blower and we should be good to go. The case back gets screwed in gently, then tightened with the rubber ball, and yeah, we're done. Well, actually, we do need to put the strap back on, but hey. Here you go with the final result, and I can't tell you how pleased I am with how it turned out. I thought the dial looked amazing before, and I do think it just looks stunning now. It might be a bit simple, but as you get closer and start seeing the detail of that wood patterning on the dial, it really does pop. The very simple splash of red on the seconds hands works perfectly, to my mind at least, and the overall design, while being somewhat splashy and in your face, is not too much. Now, although it's reminiscent of a much more expensive watch, people will realize soon enough it is not a Rolex, but for $100 I just couldn't be happier. I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that Patreon link and subscribe to the channel if that's not your thing. And whatever you do, thanks for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed, hopefully you've learned something, and hopefully I'll see you very soon for some more crafting.